To share a concrete example of how land rights can contribute to climate, forest, biodiversity, and the sustainable development agendas, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Lok Bahadur Poudel Chhetri. So thank you for joining us.
Share Nepal's unique experience of land tenure system with regard to the community forestry, because I don't go to other arrangements of land. This is also held as a best practice from time to time. Basically from the historical point of view, that how this new practice was to be installed, placed in Nepal. In Nepal, every forest previously was based on the feudal type of land management, that anybody did something good and land was given to him as reward or her as reward. So it was controlled by certain people until 1951. So kind of distributive, local people, communities, indigenous people did not have that right to the land, and those who were close to the state, the ruling families, classes, or those people who got land from the ruling people, then other people started working for them. So it was really a very bad experience, not only in Nepal, this was the case elsewhere in the world. So it was in 1951 that the government decided to do something, because it was not to continue. It was inevitable to discontinue. So there was one land reform commission, and that land reform commission gave certain recommendations. One of the recommendations was to end this type of practice immediately. And by 1957, then government came up with certain plans to stop this practice, and as a result, nationalization of all forests started. So that's the point. Government decided for nationalizing all the forests, all those lands that were given to people in 1957. So the hope was to do good, as we see the documents of that time. Then the government's plan was to do something good, but soon what happened is we lost more than 500,000 hectares of land. Deforestation started. People started. There was some flaw in the rule. The policy itself. The flaw was if the land is covered by trees, would be nationalized. If the land is not covered by trees, forests, then it would be somebody else's. So that was kind of wrong, interpretation that time, which we realized later on, much later. So people started cutting the forest overnight, and it is ridiculous, but that happened, and I have seen this practice in other countries also. And then within 2 decades, then the forest area shrunk by, as I said already, 500,000 hectares. And then some reform in the land tenure system was to be initiated. So it was in 1976. I need to take one name of researcher, Professor Eric Ekholm. I don't know how many of you have heard his name. He wrote a book. The name of the book is The Losing Ground. The title itself is so suggestive, we can understand. And he proposed a theory about that type of situation that was happening, not just in Nepal, elsewhere in the tropical areas. So he came up with the idea, one theory that was known by that time as theory of Himalayan degradation. So nationally we had that experience. Internationally also there were these initiatives, these good ideas. So in 1976, then we started a new system. The new system that would be later on called Community Forestry later on, but that time how better we can manage forests, and it was adding to the inequality of the people, it was adding to the poverty of the people, so how to best tap and harness the forest resources, all forest products for the life and livelihoods of people, especially those who are close to the forests. So that started, and when Nepal's Forest Act 1993 came up, that was formulated and enacted, then this community forestry got a legal status. So I need to give you at this point of time some details what this community forestry is in our context, and so that what really, why it happened to be a best practice that can be understood from that angle. So community forestry is the forestry by the people, for the people. And this community forestry not only checked deforestation, it also increased the forest coverage. And we have many community forestry user groups, and if you are thinking about how many such groups can be there, then we have currently over 20,000 user groups, and they independently manage the forest, community forests, and this is the most inclusive body in the local level, and government has no say there. They manage the forest themselves, and there is financial procedure directive recently brought out by the government. With this, then they can also sell the products and keep audit system. Keep the records for the audit system, existing audit system. So this is really doing very good. People are managers, they are users of that forest, and when we say people, then that people specifically belongs to, refers to the people on the ground, the local communities, disadvantaged and indigenous and minority groups. And again, if we further go into the details, then especially poor, vulnerable, women, and aged people. So this is something very good practice that is going on, taking place for decades in Nepal. They have this user group has also its own policy formulation, decision making. So currently, I need to give you. I would like to give you some figures. 1.45 million households. That makes the 35% of the total population of Nepal. That is directly benefited, and this has come up with the empowerment, management, ownership, and there is also a component of accountability. They are also accountable what happens, what goes on. So forest rights. This is government's forest in name only, but in use, then this is the forest of the people. So this is the practice, as you rightly asked, this practice of community forestry. I take this opportunity to take one more minute to highlight the present context there. We have a new constitution, inclusive and rights-based constitution, and it has also ensured that right that will continue. And the government now the governance has now been divided into 3 tiers: federal, state, and local. And in the local level also we have many inclusive bodies for decision making, and we hope that local bodies and these user groups of community forestry, they will work together for better results. I skip certain parts in this because I need to go to something more important.
One more minute.
Yeah, just 1 minute more. So we recognize that there are gaps and challenges, and there can be certain ways to do better. So we are working with all stakeholders who are doing better in this sector. As you know, that 44.5% of the land now is currently covered by forest. Now our focus is on making the forest dense, more dense, and diversified. That is supports biodiversity and supports the life and livelihood of the people, especially local people. So, lastly, I believe we are in track for achieving sustainable development goals, especially goal and targets, particularly target 6.6, and many targets under goal 15. Protecting, maintaining, and better managing forest has always been a priority of the government. And how better we can harness forest resources sustainably for achieving not just the goals and targets that are directly related to forest, but also all of the interrelated and other goals that are there. So our focus is there. And second, sharing good practices and learning from other similar experiences elsewhere. That is also our priority. This is also intricately interwoven with sustainable development at other levels, regional, national, and global. And here I wish to remember what Jose Martinez Cobo, Special Rapporteur of the Subcommission on Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities, said by special relationship between the existence of local indigenous communities and their land, especially forests. So that is one way of doing justice to what he wanted to say. And finally, increasing agricultural productivity, protecting forests and biodiversity, minimizing climate change impacts, and harnessing the full potential of forest resources. This is something that needs wider collaboration, partnership, understanding, and support. So Nepal is ready for doing all it can and hopes a similar role, the continuing similar role will be played from all sides. Thank you very much.